We are back with Marcel, 32 years in business, really an incredible journey. And the journey is transitioning. And I think when business owners go through a transition, such as selling the business, there's a whole host of new challenges and really a lot of these challenges aren't just in the activity of selling and how you're going about doing that, but it's really what does that mean for you? It's almost like disconnecting or detaching from a child that you've raised for 30 years. So, Marcel, you're at this incredible stage now. You're I wouldn't say that you're sunsetting. I would say that you're transitioning to something newer and greater and better, which we'll talk about. What was the decision like to realize it was time maybe to look at making this transition out of the business and starting to navigate out of it?
You know, it's interesting. I'll spare the details, but a long time ago, I came across a fellow who was in my business, and he was well into his 60s, and he was at a conference, a little inebriated and making a bit of a fool of himself. And I remember coming home from that conference, and I said to my wife, "I'm not going to grow old in this business. I refuse to." And I don't know what it was about this guy and why I associated with this business, because it could have been any business where somebody does this.
Mm.
But I realized that, there's a time to let go. I realized that very early in my life. There would be a time where you have to let go and move on. Because I've known people who stay in their businesses forever.
Mm.
And, sometimes business is a young person's game, and you need the energy and you need the knowledge and you need to be able to stay current. And as you age, it becomes more difficult. So what I did was I started a succession plan about 7 years ago, started looking for the right people. I went out and, excuse me, did my own recruiting, didn't hire a headhunter. I placed some very well-worded ads online on social platforms, and I attracted some great people to me. We then sat down and started talking about a process where over the next 3 to 5 years, they would learn the business, and if it fit and it was a proper thing, then I would sell out to them and allow them to go on. And, it all sounds great in theory. But I have to be honest, when I got to that line where they said, and it wasn't easy getting there because, negotiating's back and forth, and everybody has their own consultants who have their opinions. And I stuck to my guns. I created a value for the company with that accountant I've had for 30 years, and I presented it to them, and they kept coming at me, and I stuck to my guns. I said, if you don't want it, you don't have to take it. I'm not forcing you to buy this,
Mm.
but it's a good deal. We've worked it through. It's very fair. They couldn't deny that. And so they finally came to the table and said, let's make this happen. Except I found myself going, what am I going to do on Monday morning when I wake up? So I went through a very tumultuous internal period where I suddenly realized that within a few years, I would no longer be the principal of collaborate architecture and design.
Mm.
I would no longer be the guy going to the conferences, speaking at the conferences. And when you suddenly look at this, you go, wow, this is a big change. However, it was something that I had been planning to do for a number of years and really did want to make some changes. I worked hard. I traveled a lot, probably traveled too much. I wanted to spend more time at home, more time with my family, and I want to enjoy my time. So it's been a challenge. I can't deny it, and you know it because we've talked about it a few times at Coach. That when you sit back and you leave somebody else going with it, maybe that's why some people wind up their companies because they don't want to see someone else run it.
Mm.
And I think that's been one of my biggest challenges is that the new guys are coming in and they all have their own ideas, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what's wrong with the way it was working? Except it's not mine anymore. So it really has been a challenging time period to go through it, to talk about the changes, to still be there to provide support, and to carve out a position that I will be more of like an ambassador for the next couple of years. Because the problem is, I still get the phone calls,
Mm.
right? I'm still on everybody's contact list. People know me. Clients in this business go away. They come back 5 years later. They have a new project. They want to call the people they know. So I've gotten to a point where I'm going to do that, but it definitely was very challenging to have somebody look at your business and because they now are taking their own ownership, they're almost challenging what you did. And it's very difficult to not take that personally.
Through that reflection, and obviously, I would imagine some great conversations with your wife. At the same time, of course, in the buildup of this transition, you've been building a brand new home in a very beautiful location. So there's a number of kind of steps happening along the way. What would you say have you come to realize now as you're kind of on the other, you're not fully on the other side, but you're, if we were looking at a hill, that you're on the bottom, you're on the descent of the hill in the scenario of the business, right? Building it up, building it up, building it up, and now you're transitioning out and further out. Reflecting back now and thinking on, what's the positive aspect of it other than, the ability to move on to a new area of your life. What are some of the things that you're most excited about when you think about this transition now materializing in your life?
For what I'm about to explain to you, it's more like being on a roller coaster, and we've made it all the way to the top. And now I can throw my hands in the air and enjoy that ride down. How's that for a little turn?
I like that. I think that's a great visual.
And I think that what's happening is that um, this is where my true entrepreneurial skills are coming out, because I have been listening to a lot of my friends over the last several years in my age group who are bemoaning this word retirement, who are saying, geez, Marcella, I'm not needed at my business anymore. I have friends who worked for corporations who do a youth movement, and they go, you're in your 60s, you're too old. We're letting you go. You make too much money, right? And it's like, I don't want to go. I'm happy here. Yeah, but do you want to work for half? Well, of course, nobody wants to do that. So, they get faced with all these difficult things. Um, and people struggle with, can I afford to? Or what am I going to do? Because my sense of identity is tied up in what I've been
Mm.
doing all my life. And so listening to this and talking to people, um, and facing it myself, because I'm even thinking, what am I going to do? Right? I'm not going to golf every day. I'm not, I can't afford to go travel the world for 3 years and, you know, get on one of these cruise ships that'll come back in 2 or 3 years and see the entire world. Um, so I have to find some things to do. And, my wife and I just went through a very interesting experience that has contributed totally with this. Okay, picture this. I've been running my business for 32 years, have a nice home in Calgary, we live on a nice street. I could have worked out a couple more years, retired, stayed in that home, and we could have just hung out with our regular friends once a year, go to Hawaii, Mexico, whatever the thing is, and, just kind of coast it. No, 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 no. We uprooted ourselves. We pulled ourselves right out of the ground. And we have this piece of land on the Sunshine Coast where we have built a house. And in the meantime, before the house was ready, we moved to Vancouver. And we lived in Vancouver for a year in an apartment. After being in a house for 35 years, we then lived in an apartment with a big golden retriever on the 16th floor. So, anything that had to do with him was get yourself together, go down the hallway, wait for an elevator, big change of life. Nothing's familiar. The grocery store isn't familiar.
Mm.
The neighborhood isn't familiar. But we took it upon ourselves to say, this is one heck of an adventure. And so we started looking at things differently. I'm not 68, I'm 32 in my mind because I'm looking at this as a great exploration. Plus, we're watching our house get built. And we've just moved into the house. So we're still unpacking and getting settled. And again, the grocery store is different yet again, right? Everything is different. I have to find my way around. I have to find all the things that are part of my life. And that excitement made me realize that it's pretty easy to look at this as an exciting challenge as opposed to, oh no, I can't go to work anymore because they don't want me, right? Or I can't do my job like I used to. Or I've been doing this for 35 years. How many more years do I have to do? These are all the things I was hearing.
Mm.
And we're pretty excited about where we're at right now in our life. We still have all of our friends in Calgary. They all have invitations to come. We talk to each other all the time. And, it's not an end, but rather an opportunity to do something new. And that's what is giving birth to my next challenge in my life.
Yeah, I love that, and it's the key element is thinking differently and talking through that thinking differently component. How you approach thing, Earl Nightingale, I believe it was, who says, "You
Mm.
are what you think about all day long." And it's fundamentally all about your thinking. And that was a big aspect for my mentor, Nelson Nash. He believed that. In fact, he would start every presentation he did with, "It's all about how you think." You see, it's
Mhm.
all about how you think.
Mm.
It's all about how you think. And he would emphasize different words, but just repeat the same thing 3 times, but in a really powerful way that would get you centered to be aware of, right, I got it. I can change the way that I think.
We're always open to things. And I don't know why, but so many of us tend to shut down. It's like, well, I achieved what I wanted to. Now I don't know what else there is, or now there's nothing else, or nothing else could make me happy. But yet it's a continual journey all the way through. So why make a part of it tedious? Why not keep the energy? Why not continue to grow and learn and do things? As I'm hitting this age in my life, I get why it is such a depressing term, because it just has this connotation to it. It's like one of my clients um, is a hearing aid company. It's Connect Hearing. We've done a lot of work with Connect in Canada and the US, and they're headquartered out of Switzerland. So we've actually done work with their head office. We've done some phenomenal design work. And they refer to hearing aids, which have a real stigma, as they're now audiological devices. So that they're trying to change how people look at a simple thing like a hearing aid. Because next to retirement, nobody wants a hearing aid, right? It means you're old, you can't hear things. And yet, if you can change that perception and make it more of a better experience, then all of a sudden it's not such a phobia. It's like, wow, look what this thing is doing for me.